I have been very cognizant of the fact that it's so difficult for artists to find studios in Sydney, and with the lack of available space, the high rentals, artists are being pushed further and further out of the city, which really is a tragedy for the culture of the city. And I had been thinking for some time of the idea of setting up some artist studios, and the opportunity arose when I found this warehouse which was actually being used to manufacture and process olives and dips and similar products. The warehouse is in the heart of Marrickville, and Marrickville has a creative history interspersed with all the industrial landscape of Marrickville. We have these wonderful, mostly single artist studios. The opportunity arose to put the studios together. We gutted the building and put in 8 artist studios on the upper level of the building with an industrial design studio on the lower level.
One really nice thing about having a studio here is that it's very busy with 8 of us, and there's a really nice community and sharing of career and material ways of working and negotiating the complicated art world we live in and the complicated world we currently live in. So it's a really lovely way of working together.
What sets Shirlow apart is that Teresa is constantly trying to create opportunities for us, mostly through studio visits, bringing people into the studios, promoting the profile of different artists to collectors. And that's a really important thing because that can be really difficult for artists to generate for themselves.
I hope to see more collectives and collaborations be born as we go forward. Often I find myself jealous of the music industry in that I have a lot of musician friends, and the act of jamming together or the act of being a part of different bands that can express different parts of your identity is something that I think the visual arts could practice more. And especially with the themes that are strong in contemporary art of an interest in collectivity and collaboration and democratic modes of being, I think more collective art making and more transdisciplinary art making. Artists, musicians, architects, what would they make together, and ways of, at least sharing dialogues more fluidly. If an artist studio structure would respond to that kind of fluidity or have more shared making spaces, that would be interesting. And then also the way that your art practice as a professional artist can get over-professionalized and can get separated from the depth of your personal life or your interior spaces.
Marrickville, or the area that we're in, seems like a creative area. There are other studios nearby with friends and studios. So when I come here, I know that I'm part of this kind of creative industry. You know that it's a place where people are making things, basically, to share that, whether it's industry or it's creative industry. So it's good to be amongst that and be a part of that, even if it's happening in the background, you can't see it. Downstairs from the building we have So What, and they're making furniture, but it's still, we chat about things. And also walking some of the back alleys, like there's a lot of small light industrial spaces, and there's like hand wood making, and then there's someone making a boat, or there's panel beading, and you sort of see these in a way they're crafts, and they're all using different tools to sort of shape objects. And when I come back in the studio, I'm making these kind of sculptural forms, and I think, oh, there's not too much difference. Maybe the difference is I don't have a direct client, but we're all making things.
So What was started about 5 years ago in our garage at home. We initially were a lighting design studio. We quickly shifted to furniture where we can have a little bit more of an interactive approach to the designs, where we can prototype more easily. So now So What is a furniture and joinery studio, and we kind of have a little bit of a niche in between the design and the manufacture.
We interact with the artists at Shirlow Street a lot. We kind of bounce ideas off each other. Some things that we maybe are kind of more in our expertise, and then sometimes we need to run ideas past them that are kind of more in their area, their field of expertise. We work with a number of artists and we help them realise some of their commissions that require bespoke aspects. Sometimes it's timber, sometimes it's steel work, whatever they need, we try and help them out.
It takes me a while to zone into my work. So if there's a lot of noise going on, that would probably be the most challenging thing, but that's unusual. I find all the talks challenging. That's the most challenging aspect of being at Shirlow for me, but it's stimulating. It's just a really nurturing environment. I mean, from the Biettes, but also the other, everyone's like, oh, do you need some help with this? Or would you like to talk about that? So there's chances not just for technical help, but also we can have critiques between each other. So there's an exchange going on all the time, right from technical to aesthetics to the meaning and whether you're conveying that meaning across, what are they getting from your work. We're right at the bottom of the rung, with money-wise, and to be given this kind of opportunity has helped me so much professionally and personally. And so if this was to be reflected outside of here through other people doing similar things for other artists like myself, I think that would be wonderful, because you've got the different people coming in. Sometimes you're giving a talk and sometimes you're just having conversation, and then sometimes there'll be an art consultant that's already researched you, and so she'll ask you a whole lot of questions like you are doing as me now. I think Amanda Love did our first review for the Shirlow Studios, so there's that sort of, then they're going out and telling other people about it. The patrons of Sydney Biennale came, I think it was Barbara Moore, and then Jose Roca. So that's the response. It's an ongoing conversation, and through conversation they're like, oh, well, we might go and have a look.
When the studios are open to the public, or if we have visitors through, things that are potentially super early in the thinking process, I don't really share those. I just remember the first one of, kind of being here and people sort of turning up, and it was actually quite exciting. It was like having a party. It was like having this big social event and getting to talk about your work at it. It was actually rather fun. So it did bring, a lot of people together on that day, or on those days that we've had that. And people were chatting, people were kind of running into each other here, like an exhibition opening. So I think in a similar way, it was a really lovely opportunity to connect different people in the art community. And I think what's been really wonderful is sort of learning about other people's thinking processes and about process of production, when they make, how they make, what they're kind of thinking about when they're making it. And sometimes it's like little great candid conversations in the corridor and, when we're making tea.
This is the first proper studio that I've ever had. And for the longest time, I've always worked from home, which is a pretty solitary process. And I always enjoyed visiting friends at their studios and seeing how other artists can inform your work. Like, every artist here is so different. Being squeezed between Mason and Will too, these guys that work quite minimally make you look at your own work at various stages. We're all sort of ships in the night, so people might come in and do a couple of things here and there, and I always arrive and have a little sticky beak in everyone's space and see what's been cooking, which is nice, and seeing that work sort of makes you work harder. I guess being such an open studio, everyone is potentially open to collaboration, and that's always a good way to sort of battle any preconceived or old structures in moving forward. Especially during COVID, all the sort of the way the structure is constantly changing and evolving, even with like the NFT, the sort of rise of the NFTs, which I just had to Google the other day because I follow like a meme account. I was like, what the hell is an NFT? Yeah, which makes you feel like a bit of a dinosaur, sort of painting and sewing and making these sort of tangible, physical things. Yeah, I guess those new challenges will always sort of present themselves, and you just have to be willing to open and constantly thinking about those things should the opportunity ever arise.
The internet has really changed how artists practice and how we're found, or like other people can find our practice, how galleries can get in touch, also how that we can find new spaces to exhibit in. And something that Shirlow does really well is then builds on that as well. So bringing in individuals who run gallery spaces or who are jump-starting new programs and kind of breaking down those walls as well. With the studio space, it's not just about putting, X amount of people under one roof and then kind of leaving them to it. I think it's also about who you bring through the door and the opportunities that come from that.
I think for me, the most surprising takeaway in coming to Shirlow Studios was that I'd forgotten how much impact it had on my work to be around other artists that really inspire me. So I've had other studio residencies at places like Parramatta Artist Studios, and I know in those years that I was just, would get so on fire and inspired by the people who were around me. It's almost like when racehorses have running mates that they have, and it makes them run harder. That's just such a fantastic thing, and, it pushes you in exciting ways.